And through all your cases, I mean, what have you learned about people's behavior and their reaction to being arrested and prosecuted and, being called a
I
criminal?
I think there's several different things. I think the first thing that each of my clients say is the police report says something that's just not true. Um, what that says to me is if each client saying that, then there's kind of something wrong with the system. Somebody is saying, go ahead and write whatever you feel like on the police report because we want a conviction. That's not right. That's just plain and simple not right. And I think each of my clients that go through that, it's very saddening and very frustrating for them because they trust these police people, whether it's somebody who's been on the force for a year or somebody who's been on the force for 20 years. They expect those people to be above reproach. And the truth is that in many of these cases, something is in the police report that just plain did not happen. And for that reason, it's real tough because my client is now being called a criminal. The police report is still made by a police person, and the police person is the person who, for all intents and purposes, is the person who the court tends to believe, whether that's the judge or whether that goes to jury. Um, one of the things I've heard before at jury level is, well, it wouldn't be going to trial if they weren't guilty. And that's just not true.
Yeesh.
In terms of the actual clients, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration. Um, and that goes to the clients that are just plain guilty or those clients that really probably should not be charged with a DUI. It's very frustrating for those clients that probably should not be charged with a DUI because I can't just make the case disappear. That's not the way it works. But what I can do is I can fight for them to see what I can do on the back end.
Okay. And as a follow-up to that, what do you think is the greatest source of fear for people? Is it loss of the license? Is it jail time? Is it the shame of the offense?
I think you have the shame. A lot of people don't want to ever tell anybody they know that they were charged with a DUI, or that they were convicted of a DUI. The sad part about that is if you really look at the numbers, probably one of your friends, or maybe even somebody who's watching this right now, they've been charged with a DUI. And it's not an uncommon charge. I think that that's one of the big fears is how everybody else is going to look at you when this is all said and done. I think the other thing is it just costs a lot of money. People are having a hard time. The economy is just tough, and they're spitting out just a lot of money, whether it's for the attorneys, whether it's for the court fees, whether it's for the fines, whether it's for the classes. It ends up being a lot of money, and that's a source of fear too because jobs can be hard to come by.
Okay. And this leads right into the next question. Do you feel that the current DUI law and punishments are too harsh, or are they too lax, and why?
Um, I think I'm going to back off from that question a little bit, and the reason is there's there's a reason why it's against the law. I think we all understand that. I think the problem with it is not whether the punishments are too lax, whether they are too stringent, or whether they're somewhere in between. I think the problem is the way we charge DUIs. You have people that may not be under the influence that are still being convicted because they're at 0.08 blood alcohol volume. They might not have had any bad driving. They might not have said anything wrong. They may have passed all their tests with flying colors, and they're still being convicted. I think the problem is where in some places we have prosecutors that are trying to find justice. My general feeling in California is on DUIs in particular, prosecutors are trying to get convictions. They're not necessarily trying to find whether the person was actually driving under the influence. They're just saying, hey, tough luck, Charlie. And I think that that's a big problem. I think that that's the problem more so than whether the punishments are too harsh. The punishments may be just right if we were convicting the right people.
Okay. And this leads into, if someone has a .08 blood alcohol level, are they really under the influence? Is that a fair level, you would say?
.08 it's the legal level. If you're above .08, you're driving under the influence. It doesn't matter whether you're inebriated or not. With that being said, .08, depending on the person's size, somebody my size, I'm about 200 pounds, .08 could be as little as 1.5 beers, maybe one strong beer in under an hour. If you are a 200-pound guy, one beer in an hour may not do a whole lot to you in terms of levels of inebriation, and that's going both on just the general feeling, boy, I don't feel drunk, to also there's experts that say one beer may not impair somebody as much as we've previously thought. That doesn't mean that they're not legally under the influence, but there's a difference between being legally under the influence and the second charge to actually driving under the influence. There's two charges when you're charged with DUI, an A and a B count. One is the .08 that everybody knows. The other is driving under the influence. Some people may not be under the influence at .08, and then there may be some people that are under the influence at .04. It's really a very personal thing, and because of that, they went to a .08 number, but I don't know that number is necessarily fair for all circumstances.
Okay. And what do you see as the future of DUI in terms of punishments and the number of offenders?
I see it going up. I see it continuing to go up until we, as a society, check ourselves and say, is this really causing the problems that we think it is? The problem with DUI is that what happens when somebody has a accident with DUI or they hurt somebody while under the influence, it's a horrible thing. It's a dirty shame, and it shouldn't happen. But with that being said, I think where we're at in terms of our state and in terms of maybe even our country is the states are having problems with money. And DUI is a quick way to get basically a couple $1,000s from one of their taxpayers without having to fight for it. All they have to do is say, no, you're guilty. And please cough up a chunk of change. I don't say that to be funny. I say that because I really see it as a source of revenue for the state rather than a source of punishment or a source of correcting bad behaviors. The punishment doesn't necessarily correct bad behaviors. And because of that, if it doesn't correct it, then there's something wrong with it. That our society is not about necessarily punishment, they're about preventing the behavior from continuing. And that may not stop people from continuing to have the same experiences.